Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Superbet Rapid and Blitz. If you remember, I made a recap on the first 3 days of this tournament, and Vishwanathan Anand was crushing. He was playing at a 3,500 level, and then the last 2 days of this tournament, everybody plays everybody 2 times in Blitz. Now, you might notice that all of this looks different. First of all, there's no HD available. Second of all, this is a different angle. That's because my desktop, when I booted it up today, the Ethernet stopped working completely. The Wi-Fi was working in my house, but the Ethernet stopped working, so I had to order a new Ethernet cable, and I can't do anything on my desktop otherwise. So I'm recording on my laptop. Grind never stops, you know, gotta put out these videos for y'all, so I apologize if the video quality is not as good today. Basically, we are going to be covering, well, like I said, you know, the last 2 days of the Blitz, and Vishwanathan Anand is gonna continue to try to dominate the field. And we're gonna have a great time following his game. So he begins the Blitz. This is round number 1 against young Krzysztof Duda, Polish hero, and we have a Berlin invitation, which Anand promptly declines. He's not interested in going to Berlin. He's only interested in going to Warsaw, which is where the tournament is being held. Bishop c5 for this anti-Berlin, bishop c6, dc6. Very unique pawn structure. Oftentimes, white will play h3 to prevent the bishop from going to g4. There will be short castle here as well. Black might play knight back to d7 to reroute the knight to e6 and play f6 to support the center, among many other game plans, right? So Anand plays knight c3. Okay, Duda plays queen e7, choosing this plan. Here's the move h3. Here's the move a5. a5 has 2 purposes. Number 1, you want to play a4, a3 potentially in the future. Number 2, you want to make sure that the bishop can kind of go out. So you have, you know, queenside advancement as one middle game plan, and, you know, bishop going back as another middle game plan. Anand just gets rid of the bishop. So we have a super imbalanced pawn structure, right? White has doubled E pawns, but the open F file. Black has doubled C pawns, but the open D file, and more stuff on the queen side. A4, I just mentioned this move. A3, short castle, and now knight e8. So the knight reroutes to d6 with the move f6, and the knight does not reroute to e6. Early on in this opening, I said that black would want to go knight d7, knight f8, knight e6. Well, Duda decides that the knight is better here. Why is the knight better there? Well, white's main point of advancement in this position is going to be the move d4. If you play the move d4, then you greatly destabilize the e4 pawn, right? That just makes sense. That's why the knight is now better on the d6 square than the e6 square, okay? So we have g4, Anand just going for it, same side, king side attack, queen g3, rook f2, rook f1, and if it's not clear already, Anand at some point would really like to play h4, get something going on the h file. What does Duda do? I gotta stop. b5. Okay, so Duda's like, I don't care that you're attacking me. I'm gonna attack you right back. Remember what Gotham said in his recap. I don't know how Gotham made the recap of this game before this game is even over, but remember what Gotham said in his recap. A5 was played in order to expand on the queen side. Well, now we see that queen side expansion. Knight e2, rook f7, h4, there it is. Knight h2 back. The idea of knight h2 back is that obviously you're attacking this, but also you have various rerouting ideas, like you might move some pieces out of the way, get this knight over to those squares. All right, so c5, Duda is not allowing Anand to just shuffle. Rook f8, defending himself. Here comes the knight, but Duda's right there on the queen side. See, Anand committed all his pieces to the king side, which means that if he doesn't break through, the queen side will fall apart. So we have knight f5. All right, Duda takes on f5 with the bishop. gf5, clearing out the g file and the knight going to g4. Rook h7. Now, a horrible move here by Anand would be, for example, to play h5, because h5 completely shuts down any hope of an attack, and you basically are practically just, you're killing your own position. So he plays rook g2. He's trying to keep hope alive, right? Queen f3, takes, and Duda, I mean, he's doing the right thing. Duda's an amazing defender. He's doing the right thing. Rook d1. Queen b7. All right, so Duda is destabilizing e4 by threatening to take and take here. He's also got b4 on the cards. Anand takes on c4. Knight takes c4. Knight g4. Anand is like 2 moves away from completely knocking it all down on the king side and winning. And he does, in fact, take. And now we begin to see the problems of the black position. If he takes with the f-pawn, this pawn can march through, cutting everybody's circulation, and the queen gets in and bullies everybody to death. Instead of that, we have hg, but now rook h2, removing the defender of the rook in front of the king. And the problem is that Anand has backup, and he's got backup from two sides, and the knight can jump over everybody and get into the position as well. So it's a very bad position for Duda to find himself in, okay? So queen b7, knight takes f6. Beautiful tactic. Not allowing queen h7, and if rook f6, there is rook d8. So that's exactly what happens. First he plays queen h5. The point is that now if you block, I go rook d8, rook d7, and I'm going to win your queen. So we have king g7, queen g5, king is getting hunted out, and now the killing move. The queen and rook lock arms. You know, like you can behind your back? Like this? No, you can't. Then you need some flexibility training. Rook d8. And it doesn't matter that Duda is up a horse. His horse is insignificant. No disrespect whatsoever to horses, all right? I'm not horsist. Okay, but yeah, I mean, the knight is just not participating in this game whatsoever. All right, material is important in chess, but the second most important thing, tied right there with material, is king safety. And Duda is tanked on king safety, even though he's really, really high up in terms of material. I mean, he's up a full knight, right? Queen g8, you can't stop it. And look at this move. Anand doesn't even play queen g8 check. It looks like this is the way to go, but then he has no more checks. No more checks with the rook or the queen, so he stays patient as the knight tries to become useful. Rook h8, and now there's a problem because the queen has backup on the 8th rank, and there's nothing you can do here if you're Duda. Queen takes e4, check here, and he pinballs the king right back to its death on the f7 square. Rook h7 mate, and one pawn, by the way, is the deal. It seals the deal here for white. One pawn covers the king's escape. So Anand wins an incredible game against Duda. I mean, he is just a wrecking. He's unstoppable right now, playing at unbelievable level. But the blitz, the story in the blitz was the other players. Okay, because you always, you know, blitz, you either flame out or you get red hot. Klay Thompson going for 39.25, and one man did that. He did not win 39 games, but that man is Fabiano Caruana. We're actually going to look at the game from his perspective as he plays an imbalanced English, giving up his dark squared bishop early against Anton Korobov to put pawns on dark squares, and then play knight e7, castles. And you might ask, why didn't he put the knight traditionally on the f6 square, right? So he could play this move. All right, so he could play f5 to try to open up not just his rook, but also his bishop, right, getting into the game via pawn trade. So we have ef5, bishop f5, and traditional understanding should tell you that, you know, white is better here. White has bishop pair, you know, but actually black is doing extremely well. If you notice, every single one of black's pawns except the one is on a dark square. And considering you've traded your dark squared bishop, that means that strategically you're doing something that makes sense. Now, it's not worth going b6. All right, it's not like chess.com has a little side quest that's going to pop up like achievement. You put all your pawns on dark squares, you moron. Congratulations. No, that's like, you don't need to do that. Also, this game was not played on chess.com. It was played live over the board in Poland. But, you know, you don't get any bonus points for doing that. So queen d7, idea is obviously you are trying to connect your rooks, but also this battery, right? This is a very common idea in King's Fianchetto Englishes to trade off your opponent's light squared bishop, because anytime that there's a pyramid of pawns and a light squared bishop is traded, there's going to be weaknesses. Korobov plays h3, preventing that. The problem for Korobov, and by the way, Fabiano does in fact fulfill the quest. At this point, the arbiter came over, paused the clock, patted him on the head, gave him a little candy bar, and said, congratulations, the game might continue. And then Fabiano said, don't touch me, and almost threatened to punch the guy. How do you almost threaten to punch someone? What am I even, like, how do you almost threaten? You could threaten to almost punch, but how do you almost threaten? You're like, I'm good. I swear if you... yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Fabiano does that to prevent c5. Also, you've played h3, but this really means that you won't castle because h3 will lose the defender. So you could play g4, and, you know, we'll see if Korobov does that. Fabiano now is a principled man. Well, he was always principled, not just now, but white's king is still stuck in the middle. So what do? Rip open the middle, d5. So he breaks the quest of all pawns on dark squares, cd5, knight d5, and I mean, he's ready to either take and take, although he has to be obviously careful. His king is a little bit weak. Notice all his pawns are in dark squares, and his king is on a light square, which means his king is weak in many tactical situations, because if all your pawns are on dark squares, it means none of your pawns are on light squares. Genius commentary here by Gotham. If all your pawns are on dark squares, it means none of your pawns are on light squares. Sounds like some Dr. Seuss book. Yeah, you know, doing this video on a laptop, not a desktop, did not change the fact that your favorite YouTuber still happens to be a complete degenerate. And so, you know, Fabiano just wants to rip things open. Takes, bishop g6. So now white doesn't even have the bishop pair and has all the problems of his position. Why did Fabiano play bishop g6, by the way? Can someone tell me? I wouldn't know because this is not a live classroom setting. He wants to not allow Korobov to castle. This is all he's disallowing Korobov to castle. That's it. That's all he's doing. And Korobov's got a very tough position here. So he plays the move g4. Fabiano plays knight c8. Idea being knight to d6 at some point. Queen e7. And taking advantage of this move, now he has queen h4, right? Very nice idea. Now Korobov is trying to protect his king. The problem is, it's really difficult to do that, considering every single piece Fabi has is playing. All 5. Bishop, knight, both rooks are involved, queen is involved. I mean, Korobov is fighting for his life here. He's trying to bounce off the ropes, you know, trying to dodge the power shots. Caruana slowly getting in. Look at this. Queen g3, a little cancerous move. Trying to go to h2 and g1 maybe. But again, it's never too late to hang your queen. It's check because the king is weak and then rook here. So you need the king on h8. All right? And then maybe you can play like this. As long as your king is safe, maybe you can play like that. Let's see how Fabiano's going to do it. He plays king h7, not king h8. And now he's just picking up the pawns. So Fabiano hunts Korobov. Look at Korobov's king, by the way. I mean, my guy was stressed out. So well, normally you would run out of the middle. Sorry, out of the side. But here he just books it, completely sacrifices this side of the board. Caruana very methodically, slowly but surely removing all the defenders around the king. And he's up a couple of pawns. What do you do if you're up a couple of pawns? You simplify, you get into a winning endgame, and you remove your opponent's most annoying pieces of counterplay, such as the queen, such as the knight, such as the rook. Fabi's up 3 pawns, and yeah, he forces a queen trade, forces a trade of minor pieces. Guy's got 2 pawns versus 5. Very clean win from Caruana, who, while Anand was trying to win more and more games, went 7.5 out of 8. Fabiano Caruana got 7.5 out of 8 in the middle of the blitz. I mean, that is insane. 7.5 out of 8. Did I say that already? Yo, empty room. He got 7.5 out of 8. 7.5! 7 wins and 1 draw. He beat Anand. He beat everybody. I mean, well, like literally. I mean, he just beat everybody in the field to try to catch up. But there was another man. All right, there was another man. All right, who was trying to overtake everybody as well. All right, and that man's name was Levan Ranyan. He is an unstoppable blitz player as well, going for a scholar's mate here versus Wesley So, which Wesley deflects with knight f6, and now we have just a regular bishop's opening. Black is saying, well, you know, I'm not going to put my knight here because you put your bishop here, so I'm going to build for d5 to kick you out of the middle, right? So bishop e7. Now, you might be wondering if this is a free pawn. It is if you're a degenerate. If you're not a degenerate, you're just going to notice that, you know, there's you just have to look for checks for yourself and for your opponent. And yeah, queen a5 check. And that would lose the game. So castles. Rook e1. And, you know, life is good. a3, d5, queen c7, d4. Aranyan explodes the center of the board right away. So we have d takes e4, knight takes e4, e takes d4, queen takes d4, knight takes e4, queen takes e4, bishop f6. Okay, who's better? Both sides are missing e and d pawns. So how do we evaluate a position? We just talked about this in the game between Duda and Anand. Material, equal. King safety, equal. But who's better? Active pieces, future prospects of the pieces, and space advantage. You know, space advantage, pawn structure. Well, in this position, Aranyan realizes that he's a gangster. I don't know how you like come to that realization. I mean, I feel like it's mostly ingrained inside of you. You sort of brought up that way. Aranyan realizes that there's no point slow playing. You know, oh, I can't move my bishop because then he takes my pawn, so I have to go here. And then no, he attacks the queen. And he does something here called developing an initiative, which is creating threats against your opponent and simultaneously improving your position move by move. Bishop f4, the queen moves out of the way, and now bishop to d6. And there's a big problem here for Wesley. If he moves his rook to d8, Aranyan is going to sacrifice his queen. And then it's going to be mate. He's going to mate Wesley on move 18. So what happened? Well, I guess when Anand exploded the center with the move d4, Wesley had to be a little bit more careful. He had to not just trade absolutely everything. He had to, I guess, keep the tension. He had to not allow Anand to kind of open up the position the way he wants, because, you know, e takes d5 would have been possible, and this would have been a completely different story because white is still a bit congested. So he has to play still a couple of more moves to get active. By then, you know, black can respond actively. But because Wesley decided to trade a couple of pieces too many, we have this, and now there's a big problem. So Wesley has to start trying to do something in terms of the counterplay. But bishop takes f8, knight f8, queen e8, and the queen completely paralyzing the entire 8th rank. But okay, you might ask yourself, well, what's the big deal? Bishop takes a1. No, queen f7. Folks, there's a bishop on a2. Admit it, you forgot about it. Admit it, you're not even watching the screen. All right? Queen f5, defending the f7 square. Rook e7, bishop e6. All right, mate has been defended, but he has to give up the rook. So Anand takes the rook. We have bishop takes a1, rook e8. Now, this is not the end of the story. There is obviously queen c5. Okay, queen c5, fantastic. Everything's defended, right? Takes. No, everything is most certainly not defended. Queen takes b7. These pawns are split. Knight g5 is coming at some point. I mean, I can play h4, knight g5. Yeah, I mean, not only is Levon up 2 points of material, it's far worse than that. Queen takes c2 played, he plays g3, and Wesley just resigns. He just resigns. He doesn't even... Why does he resign? Well, there's no back rank mate anymore. If there's no back rank mate, let's say Wesley just go back to f6. What's going to happen in this game is that Levon is going to harass the knight on f8, which is the king's only bit of defense, right? Like queen b4 and this. And if you don't blunder that, like somehow you play, you know, queen f5 and you manage to defend everything, then Aranyan's just going to win all your pawns. He's going to win all your pawns, push the a-pawn. His king is completely safe on g2 because the bishop can't touch it. The knight is stuck. Aranyan defeats Wesley So in like 20 moves, just obliterates him completely. And Aranyan also is really resourceful defender. So he was defending perfectly in so many games and actually winning games from the jaws of defeat. I mean, it was unreal. So going into the final round, we had a crazy matchup, okay? Fabiano Caruana, all right, was half a point out of first place. Half a point, okay? He was playing Levon. They made a draw, okay? So they made a draw, and Levon finished kind of near the top as well as Caruana. And we are awaiting how Anand and Duda are going to do in their games. So, Anand is playing Wojtaszek, all right? He's playing Wojtaszek, which is a funny matchup because Wojtaszek was on the championship team of Anand when Anand was playing for the World Championship, if I'm not mistaken. So they're friends, but Wojtaszek is looking over there, and if Duda wins, then Duda wins the entire thing. So he's like, yo, man, I'm gonna spoil this. I don't know for whom he would choose to play, but probably for himself. So it's a Sicilian defense, and Anand plays a sidelight. I mean, he just plays bishop c4, d3 because it's blitz. You can do whatever you want. This is really not how you're supposed to play against the Sicilian to get an advantage, but it's most certainly not how, you know, you're not like worse by any means. So players are just developing their pieces, and finally Wojtaszek wastes another move to move his d-pawn to just trade in the middle. Why are you able to kind of play this pawn move 2 times? Because white has pawns in the way of his pieces, right? So it's a little bit difficult for white to claim any advantage here. Anand plays knight bd2 and bishop back to b3 and d4. So, I mean, yeah, at some point you have to play this move. But black is better. I mean, most certainly black is better. This is just not really worked out. cd4, and Anand's just going for it. I mean, he's gambling here. The knight is hanging, so you have to move it back to e6, and the d4 pawn just has good defense. I mean, Anand's just down a pawn. But it's blitz. Anything can happen. Bishop d2, knight a5. Wojtaszek trying to get rid of the bishop, and Anand's like, you want it so bad, just take it. And Wojtaszek's like, okay, well, that's exactly what I wanted anyway. So now, not only is white down a pawn, white also doesn't have the bishop pair. Okay, so Anand now takes back on d4. Here's the thing, though. If at this point black were to take on d4, and then cd4, queen d4, and say, I'm still up a pawn, what happens next is white plays queen f3, and bishop c3. Once the bishop gets to the c3 square, black might just straight up lose immediately. Like, when I say immediately, I am not joking. It could be literally in the next 3 moves. You would have to sack your queen. So losing that dark squared bishop, as we saw in the Korobov game, or at least the bishop that kind of is supposed to be defending the king, very scary stuff. So Wojtaszek doesn't take it. Okay, Anand plays b3, and then knight takes c6 and rook c1. And his idea in the long run might be to trade that bishop off. All right, but now here comes queen d7. He could have been a bit more aggressive. He could have just plowed the queen into d3 and been like, what are you going to do about it? But he plays queen d7. We have bishop g5, and we have queen e2. No queen trade for Anand, who's trying to win the game. Bishop back to f4, and here disaster strikes. Wojtaszek plays the move e5. And this move loses the defense of the f6 square, which doesn't really matter because the bishop covers that square. But now dynamite strikes. And this is a move that can really change the game. Okay? It can really change the game. Why? You cannot take it because knight f6 check. So you have to play this. Now there's bishop g7. Now the bishop takes on g2, and the king takes, and king g7, queen e5 check, and Anand is up 5 pawns to 4 in a queen and rook endgame. Okay? So how is he going to win this? He's going to trade just the right amount of pieces, or none at all, depends what he wants, and he has a 3-on-2. So he's got to win this game by either promoting a pawn or somehow creating an attack on this king by opening it up. All right? Anand, 5-time world champion, time to beat your former training partner. Okay, Anand decides, I guess Wojtaszek really offers the exchange. a4, rook c3 protecting both pawns. Here comes rook e3. And again, I said Anand is going to decide what he wants to exchange. Okay, he doesn't want to trade rooks yet. Wojtaszek invites an exchange, but that would damage the structure. Anand's like, no problem. I think the doubled f-pawns are ridiculous, Radoslav. I don't know what you're doing, Radek. I don't know what this is. Rook e3 still protects everything. f4, rook d3. Here comes the king to the f3 square. Perfect position, but now what? You can't move the rook because b3 is hanging, right? h4. a5. Ah, look at this opportunity of creating winning chances, trying to really, it's just ugly, horrible structure by white, by black. Doubled f-pawns, doubled a-pawns. What's the biggest difference maker in this position? It's the c-pawn now. Rook c3, push the pawn. There it is. And Wojtaszek is in dire straits. His king cannot protect both things. His rook is going to have to get back. And as it does, you're going to use the pawn as a decoy and take this. You're going to get to these pawns. You're going to push the rook all the way back. And that is exactly what begins to happen. The pawn runs. It's running. King c3. Wojtaszek is sacrificing his rook to allow... Anand is sacrificing his rook to get a promotion. All right? Wojtaszek is running his a-pawn. A-pawn is running down the board, but the rook comes back to stop the pawn. Queen h3. And now that pawn has an escort, and it's really bad because after this and this is check. One man is queening with check, and you're just gonna... there's 2 queens on the board. I mean, what are you gonna do? You can't battle 2 queens. And this king is just out of reach, and Anand coordinates his queens. And let me tell you something right now. You do not want to piss off 2 queens because they can very quickly coordinate, trade off yours, and Wojtaszek resigns, and now Anand is awaiting to see what's going to happen in Duda's game. If Duda wins, he wins the entire thing. His opponent is Kirill Shevchenko, okay? We have a French defense and a very locked structure. Queen b6, bishop d7, and we get the following position from the opening. Now, this position is clearly better for white. Despite black having the bishop pair, it's a very, very congested situation with d5 and f5, and really it's up to Shevchenko to decide how he's going to put the pressure here on Duda. He decides to run both knights backwards, maybe bring the rook to the g3 square, maybe bring this knight to the d3 square, f4 square, get this bishop involved somehow, right? Maybe get the rook to the c file, etc., etc. So he's got... I mean, Shevchenko's got everything moving. I mean, absolutely everything. He's got a perfect situation. Black doesn't even have the bishop pair anymore. All right? This is an unwinnable position. Duda has gotten himself into a horrible situation. But Duda is a master of defending. It took Anand, I mean, all the efforts in the world, a piece sacrifice to try to get to him in probably a low time situation. I mean, Shevchenko's position is perfect. Every move he's played has been great. Look at Duda's position. His light squared bishop is basically a tall pawn. His knight has been restricted back to the home square. I don't even know if that was the knight that originally got out. I don't think it... no, it wasn't. This is the knight from b8 because the other knight went like this. and got traded. So this knight became the other knight. That's how useless it's been left. But somehow there's no real way through. Like, how do you get through here? Everything is perfect in the Shevchenko position. Maybe he has to like build up on the c-file. I mean, Duda is covering all spots of infiltration. Just so you understand how close Duda is to being completely lost. Like, one move, and that's it. I mean, the whole position collapses because this is just mate. So Duda's knight on g8 holds everything. So Shevchenko doesn't know what to do. He freezes up. The problem is, he doesn't have the time to freeze up. All right? And here he had maybe his last moment. He can sack his bishop and then play hg and queen g5 and have this devastating attack. He hesitates too long, and Duda, from seemingly nowhere, like it looks like Shevchenko hasn't done much, looks like Duda hasn't done much either. From seemingly nowhere, Duda flips the switch completely, and now he is pushing the pace down on the queen side. Shevchenko hasn't been able to break through. He was a little bit too hesitant, and now Duda's making him pay. All right, Duda's queen is coming back. The rooks have taken control of the c-file, but Duda also finds himself in a situation where he also can't quite break through. Nobody can break through in this position. Look at what Duda does. Look at him bring the rook down, around, and up. Down, around, and up. And look at that rook on e4. I mean, it's a menace, and you can't even do anything with if you're Shevchenko, right? Bishop e3, rook c4, rook c2, and is Duda going to find a way to break through and win this entire thing? Where's his breakthrough? Uh-oh. 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 F4 is a fork, and you can't take because you're pinned. Oh my goodness. Now, if you go back a move, rook e1, f4, he literally blunders it himself. F4 in low time, spotted, takes, and that's it. And Duda is, I mean, a monumental defensive task from an unpleasant position, leaves him up a rook, and he does not look back. Trying to get in here with his queen, his rook, his knight. And, well, Shevchenko plays on a little bit more, but resigns on move 70. And Jan Krzysztof Duda surges back after Anand defeats him in the first blitz game. Aranyan and Fabiano trailed by 4 and 5 games respectively. After the... Respectively, and also respectfully, both. They also come back, and the final standings, 24 points for Duda. Wins the whole thing, 23.5 for Anand and Aranyan, and 23 for Caruana, because the rapid and blitz were, you know, scored rapid 2 points per game, I think, something like that. Anyway, what an event. Vishy Anand, 52 years of age. I'm gonna say that once again, playing people half his age, hadn't played in a while, and I saw some comments that were like, well, you know, the older the wiser. Not in chess. The older the more exhausted. All right, this is one of the most grueling sports. I mean, some people say it's not a sport, but I mean, at that level, it's definitely a sport. Yeah, Superbet Rapid and Blitz is over. Congratulations to Duda winning on home turf. Congratulations to Anand for an incredible tournament, to Aranyan for an incredible comeback, and also to Fabiano and all the other players. Shout out to David Gavrilescu, international master from, I believe, Romania. Yeah, of course, Gavrilescu. And he, you know, and Shevchenko, the young guys, and haven't had a chance to play at this level before, so hopefully for them it was a great experience, and I hope you enjoyed the recaps. I'll see you in the next one, hopefully back on my desktop. Get out of here.